I'm going to show you how to make dinner rolls. You're going to need a cup and a half of warm water from the tap, a tablespoon and a half of yeast, total of 4.5 cups of flour, 2.5 teaspoons of yeast, a quarter cup of sugar, and also a quarter cup of melted unsalted butter. What we're going to do is we're going to proof the yeast. With proofing the yeast, we're going to add the yeast to the water, and we're going to whisk it in just to make sure it's well combined. And to this, I'm going to add a pinch of sugar, and this is just so the yeast have some food to be able to proof properly. I'm going to let this sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. In a mixing bowl, what I've done here is I've added 2.5 cups of the flour, and to that I'm going to add the water, the butter, salt, and sugar. I'm going to mix this on medium speed for about 3 minutes, and what this does is it helps begins to develop the gluten strands. After 3 minutes, I'm going to remove off the paddle attachment, and I'm going to put on the dough hook attachment. And also I'm going to add a cup of flour. Now we're going to set this to our lowest speed or a knead setting. You just have to adjust this according to your mixer directions. You can do this by hand, however, if you don't have a mixer. And I'm going to go ahead and let this go just for about a minute or two, just until the dough begins to form and all the flour begins to mix in. Now this has been about 2 minutes, and now what I'm going to do with the last cup of flour that I have here, I'm not going to add all of this flour. You don't want to add all 4.5 cups of flour because we don't want the dough to be too dry. You can always add too much flour, but you can't take it out. So I'm going to add about a half a cup of the flour now, and then I'm going to turn the mixer back on knead. I'm going to let this mix a little. And this is what it looks like after about 5 minutes. And as you can see, after 5 minutes, the sides of the bowl are beginning to come clean. But it's still sticking just a little bit on the bottom. So I'm going to stop the mixer. And I'm going to add a couple of pinches of the flour. And as you can see on my finger, it's still just a little bit sticky. So I've added about 3 tablespoons of flour to this. 3 or 4 tablespoons of flour. We just want to add enough flour just to keep the dough from being sticky. But also we don't want to add too much. So now we're going to let this mix just for a second. Now I'm going to stop the machine here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all the dough off the hook itself, and I'm going to kind of knead the dough a bit in the bowl just to kind of give the mixer a hand to pull the dough together, because you will have to pull the dough off the hook and kind of help the dough form before you begin the final kneading process with the machine. So I'm just moving the dough around, pressing everything together. And as you can see here, the dough is still quite sticky, but you still have a lot of flour there that hasn't mixed in thoroughly. Now we're going to turn the machine back on. And now I'm going to let this knead for about 5 minutes. And I'll show you what it looks like after 5 minutes. Okay, and as you can see here, the dough is now pulling together after 5 minutes. And it's still just a bit sticky, but that's okay. It's always good to have a dough that's a little sticky than it being too dry. So now I'm going to add a couple of pinches of flour, because as you can see, it's still just a little bit sticky on the bottom of the bowl, and I'm going to turn the machine back on. And now I'm going to let this go for about another 3 or 4 minutes. So as you can see here, dough is no longer sticking to the bottom of the bowl. So now I'm going to pull this off the dough hook, and I'm going to knead this by hand. And what this is going to do is going to help the dough become shiny and smooth. And it's very important that you do knead the dough for this long. So now I'm going to knead this dough for approximately 6 minutes by hand. And you can add a little bit of flour to your countertop if you need to. So as you see here, I add a little bit of flour. This is what it looks like after about, I say about 6 minutes or so. And as you can see, the texture of the dough is becoming more smooth. This is after about 11 minutes of kneading by hand. And as you can see, the dough is very smooth. And the dough is very pliable. And as you see, it's a nice dough. So now what we're going to do with this dough is I'm going to put this into a lightly oiled bowl. I'm going to rub oil along the inside of the bowl. And then I'm going to take the dough and drop it in with the top side facing to the bottom first. And then I'm going to flip the dough over. This is just to make sure all the dough is covered with the oil. And then I'm going to cover it and let it rise after an hour. And this is what it looks like after about an hour and 15 minutes of rising. So now we're going to begin to shape the rolls. Press the dough down to get all the air out of the dough. And I'm going to roll this into a log. Lightly flour your surface. Begin to work the dough to press the air out of the dough first. Make sure there's no air in it. So now I'm beginning to shape the log. And I made this log approximately 10 inches long. Maybe a little bit longer. The next time I do this, I will use a ruler and provide the measurements. So this is approximately 10 to 12 inches long. So now that we have the log shape, we're going to divide this log into even pieces. We want to create a total of 26 rolls. So now what I've done was I kind of begin to score the dough to begin to know how many pieces I'm going to get out of this. So I'm scoring the dough now, doing this approximately 1 inch apart. Try your best to get the log even, but if it's not even, it's okay, because once we begin to shape the rolls, you'll be able to determine as you're rolling the dough into balls which balls are a little too big versus the ones that are too small, and you'll be able to kind of even everything out. So now I'm beginning to cut the dough here. And after you cut the dough, you're going to cut that in half. And you're going to do that with all the dough. And now that you have all the dough cut, we're going to cut it all in half. Try to work as quickly as possible. And if this is, you're not really good at making bread, a good thing to do also when you're shaping the rolls is the dough that you have left over on the side before you get to it, to keep it from getting crusty, you can lay a moist tea towel on top of it to keep the dough from becoming crusty. But I work pretty fast. So as you see here, some pieces are not even sized after I split them in half, so I'm going to just use my best discretion to make sure that each piece are even. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the dough into itself. And this is just to make sure there's no air in the dough, that the dough hasn't rose a bit while I was cutting it. And I'm going to roll it on the countertop using the palm of my hand. You do this quickly. And as you can see, you have a pretty smooth ball. And I'm going to do different sets of rolls. So here I'm going to use a muffin tin, and I'm going to create 12 balls and put that in the muffin tin. And that's what it looks like. And what this will do once the dough bake, you will have round rolls. And with this, and this pan is 11 by 7 inches, and I'm going to repeat the same steps. Just rolling the dough into balls, and I'm going to place them into the pan. And after I finish with the remaining dough, I'm going to cover it for about 30 minutes, just until they're double in size. And I'm not going to show me covering the dough just for the sake of time of the video, because this video is rather lengthy as it is. Now after the dough has doubled in volume, brush the tops down with unsalted butter, or you can use an egg wash if you desire, which is just an egg yolk with a tablespoon of either water or milk. You're going to beat the two together. You can brush the tops down. This is going to bake in a preheated 375 degree oven. The recipe did say 400 degrees, but I found that my oven was too hot. So I did 375 degrees for approximately 15 to 20 minutes until they're golden brown. Now that these are out of the oven, they're golden brown, you're going to brush the tops down with more melted butter, like I'm doing here. And that's it. That's how you make dinner rolls. And as you see here, this is what the dinner roll looks like. This is the one that I had in the 11 by 7 inch pan. And as you see, it's kind of like a little square roll, and the other one is round. I hope you guys try this recipe and enjoy it. Please don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you for watching.